So once again, I'd like to welcome everyone here. If you just go around the room, have everybody identify themselves. I'm Rick Savard. I'm the chair of the Government Affairs Committee, Coalition, and I'm the board chief city councilor.
Chris Bibby, Real Estate.
John Olson, Columbia Insurance.
Christine Pierce, Columbia Insurance, and I'm on the board of the chamber.
Colin Codner, Executive Director of the Chamber.
Glenn Morris, Chairman of Morris Architects, and the Chair of the Economic Development and Planning Committee of the Chamber.
Mike Donovan, Inspectional Services.
Joe Shadako, chairman of the board for the chamber.
Property owner.
Ed Lynch, attorney. Okay, and see the names of those who are joining us on Zoom this morning. Back in September of 2020, the city council passed an ordinance that added in a new inspection ordinance for rental units within the city to try to address some of the concerns. I can, say firsthand as a board councilor, the majority of the calls that I get are complaints related to a lot of the multi-families, particularly those that are not occupied. And those calls come at all hours of the night. Doesn't matter what day of the week or day on the calendar it is. But whether it's parking, whether it's late night parties, whether it's criminal activity, whether it's calls about complaints about conditions from tenants themselves, something needed to be done, and this is the ordinance that was passed. It took some time to put it into effect, to find a team that would take it on and the process and all, and Mike Donovan from the Chief of Inspection Services has taken that on and now begun the implementation of it. And people do have concerns and questions, and Colin and I were talking along with Joe what would make a good meeting. And as we all recognize, this is a business group, and those that are in the rental business, even though it's residential, it's still a business. So we thought it would be a good timely discussion to have here this morning. And so I thank Mike for his time coming down to clear up any misconceptions, answer questions, and explain what's taking place. So thank you once again, Mike, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. So this ordinance is an inspection ordinance for every rental residential unit in the city. The purpose of this is to try to assist the city in lessening violations of the sanitary code in residential properties. The city has been involved with doing apartment inspections for a long time, since I think the 40s, late early 50s. They were called vacancy inspections. Prior to renting an apartment, you had to have the apartment inspected and be certified that it was complying to the sanitary code. This has been a long-standing practice in the city. Unfortunately, about 15, 14 years ago, the way the city knew a property was being rented was people switched their electric. So the city would get a list of everybody that's getting a new electric bill, and we'd know what apartment was rented that month and would knock on the door. Because landlords, like anybody else, they don't call city hall visit. So we had a way to go visit them. Unfortunately, privacy concerns were raised by when the electric company became a multinational conglomerate. They stopped that. They would not give us this list. So we went from doing about 3,500 inspections a year down to, I think last year we did 550 inspections because it was on the honor system. So we got 550 calls where we used to go call 3,500. So what it means is the city over the course of time has not had a health inspector, sanitary inspector in a number of buildings to see that there's been kept up to maintain the minimum standards by the sanitary code. And these are minimum standards. No holes in the walls, screens. Conversely, we've seen, as Rick has pointed out, the number of calls we get from higher since we stopped having the ability to do inspections, because landlords haven't been taking care of their buildings for various reasons, and the buildings getting old. So this ordinance is going to allow the city, through its agent. The city did not believe that we could take this on ourselves because, as anybody who owns a rental unit knows, that we've mailed out 7,500 letters so far, another 2,500 to go around there. 3,500 more to go. It's a lot of units out. The assessors don't know what units are being rented in the city. We know how many structures there are. They know how many units there are, whether they're commercial, whether they're residential, or whether they're own occupied. It's not known. So using the assessors land use codes, we've identified 8,250 structures to send letters to, and potentially 23,000 change units. Of that, we have an idea that there may be 18,000 to 20,000 rental units. So we've got a lot of people calling City Hall, a lot of people calling our agent. We went out to bid. Safe Built is the name of the company. They'll be administering and performing the inspections, certified inspectors, doing the registrations. City Hall itself will begin to accept people. If you want a condominium and you live in it, we have a form. If you get a letter, fill out the form, send us proof that you actually live there. Because a fair amount of condominiums in the city are investment properties. So, and then we will put you on the exempt list and move on. At this point in time, we're mainly in the registration phase. We have not begun any inspection yet. I've met with some landlords, bigger landlords in the city a couple weeks ago. They had raised concerns, very legitimate concerns about the ordinance and how the procedure works. The first thing we want to do is get a registration so we know where all the rental units are. And it's $25 per unit. It's a limit depending on how many units in the building. We want everybody to get registered, so we'll have the database that we schedule inspections for once every 5 years. Now, the landlord can arrange to have the building inspected by a third party, so negotiate a better price than the city may pay, more convenient for that. And the person who would do that inspection, it's outlined in the ordinance. If they're got the qualifications, if they've done this for sanitary inspector in the community, board of health agent, somebody from that background that prove that they've been doing this, they can come into your building, do the inspections for you on a form, using our inspection form, the same form that we've been using for the past 30 years, inspecting apartments in the city. The form comes courtesy of the state, and submit those with an affidavit saying that they were actually in the apartment. They did the inspection, and the landlord can do it that way rather than having the city schedule them. We will send you a notice as a landlord saying that your inspection schedule for this is a year free. We're going to divide everything up over 5 years. Boston does this same way in a 5-year schedule and proceed that way. So the city does not have to do the inspection. You can hire a third party to do your own inspection. It may be better for the landlords who do that themselves because it can work time better. The logistics of the inspections are the hurdle that Boston faces, that anybody's going to face. If you show up that day and the landlord's there or representative, the tenant won't happen. It's going to happen. There's no question. If the landlord's doing his homework, he's already sent notice to everybody that I'm entering your apartment on this date and time. You can be there, you can not be there. We'll have a form to give landlords that tenants can sign saying, yes, they are aware of the inspections on this day. They've been served notice of inspections on this day. And they can be there or not be there. It's up to them. So that's the hurdle. That's going to be the issue for landlords, for the city, or for third parties getting into the apartment. But the expected outcome will be that landlords will be required to bring their apartments, the rental properties. As Rick said, it is a business. If you own the apartment building, and you live in an apartment, we will not be coming to your yard. We're coming into your business to make sure it's up to the code. It's as simple as that. People running businesses, it's called rental units. And like any other business, there are government imposed rules and regulations that have to follow to protect the customer. This is a consumer protection act, essentially. Tenants in a building, they don't want problems, and they don't call us. We don't know that this is not a problem. This time of year, our phones light up. Land won't turn the heat on. Won't turn it above 60. I mean, we're in heat complaints now, and we get a lot, which tells me that there are a lot of landlords out there who aren't maintaining. They may be working in good faith, but they're not. They don't live in the city. A lot of our problem properties are investor-owned buildings. They don't live. They haven't been to their building. We'll cite a building, we'll put an order on it, put the ticket on the front door, and say, "Well, I didn't know." Well, when's the last time you came to this building? When have you bought? The law says you're supposed to maintain and inspect your property, but you haven't been here. You've been collecting the rents, and now the tenants call us. So it's not going to be adversarial. This is 5 years to shake things out, to get ready for inspection. Yeah, someone has to be first, and somebody has to be last. I've had a lot of calls from a lot of different landlords, this group too, to postpone the inspections. And what I've told everybody is that get the buildings registered when we talk about inspections. But I did agree with landlords that I would not start serious inspections. We're going to start inspection right away. But we're going to be going after the properties. This lot. I've had my people pull all the complaints out, sanitary complaints for the past year or so. And we're going to go after the buildings, get in that we've had the most complaints on. It makes sense that people are calling us saying that yet. There's probably other problems, but we won't be starting any of the other type inspections until April 1st. There are people that would like to make some changes in the ordinance. They feel that Boston has an alternative program where you can register your building in this program and certify that you're going to maintain. You give the city a copy of the maintenance program, what you do, and you haven't had complaints from tenants, or you only have one or two. There's a number of requirements. Then we don't have to have the inspections of every apartment in 5 years. But it's a type of program where you have to maintain your buildings to be successful. And there are a lot of landlords in that we never go to their buildings because we get calls. There's other buildings where we go a lot. So it's a 5-year inspection plan, but this particular program that they're talking about is in the Boston ordinance. Lynn didn't pick it and put it in our ordinance, but there are some people that are going to come to the council and try to get this. There are other landlords who told me they weren't aware of the ordinance being passed because it was passed in September. They just weren't aware of it, and they want some time to figure out which route they want to take, whether they want to go with third-party inspector, maybe they get a better price than $100 per unit. $100 per unit was set by the city for the inspection, knowing that we're going after individual apartments. We may not get into every apartment. The inspector's going to drive somewhere. He's going to go there. Not going to go, maybe not get into that. And then the next one. If you can arrange the landlord to a third-party inspector, and you can arrange that person to get in and do all the inspections in one day, you can probably get a better price for the inspection. Boston charges $75 for a building above 5 stories. So we're charging.
First of all, I see this opportunity. Secondly, so if I have a unit, I'm thinking about, I just redid the basement studio, and I'm thinking about renting it out. So can I call, if the city have the manpower, so should I call the city now and say, hey, you come inspect it? Or is this, you got manpower for all these? I mean, so how does that work? Or should I just wait till my number's called and they say, hey, we're coming to look here?
So once you register,
Okay,
you're registered.
okay,
Company that's administering the program, Safeco, will send you a letter or something.
so there's another company. Okay, got it, got it. Okay,
Doesn't that fall under occupancy permit? New rental?
If it's a brand new rental, there was a building permit, and then there would be an occupancy permit.
That's what she's
certificate.
saying.
Is that what you're
She's gonna
talking about?
refinish her
Are
basement
we
to
gonna
rent
just
it out.
never been rented before?
no, it wasn't, it's never been rented.
No,
I can talk to the previous owner, because he's
Sure.
sitting right here. No, his mother-in-law
Mother-in-law.
was living there, was there before, but I just redid it and I'm thinking about renting this it out, not my first floor, but I just wanted to make sure.
That's
That falls under building inspection, occupancy permit.
Okay,
If we could let Mike do his presentation and we'll open it up for questions.
okay.
Mike, as you're continuing to go, can you expand a little bit more on the registry part of this ordinance as well?
Sure. So ordinance requires that a rental unit be registered. The first time registration is $25 and yearly it has to be registered. It's like owning a car. You own a rental. The registration confirms that you are still renting it and that you're subject to being inspected. And it's $15 per unit is a maximum if there's a lot of units in the building per building. And we have a database. One of the reasons that the implementation took so long was we had to go out using our Commonwealth of Massachusetts bidding laws to find somebody who's willing to do this. And two, we had to get our database, our inspection programs modified to build the registration so that we run this program. So whether you do this online, that capability is coming up soon. Our portal, which I'm told will be ready soon, so you can register online, or you fill out the form and send a check-in, put it to a computer database, and from there, inspection will be. The registration process is pretty simple. The form is very simple. I can send some, I didn't bring any forms with me today, but I can send you some forms. If you remember, if they want to see them, I can send, so I'll just send you a copy of the inspection checklist that we use, that we've been using for 30 years, the sanitary code, and what the inspector will be looking for when the inspector goes into the apartment. Keeping in mind that apartments legally should have been inspected when changing vacancy. Since the 50s. So this is, I want to say, this is nothing new. There's always been a willingness and a desire by the city of Lynn to ensure that its housing stock, the rental stock, is sanitary, meets the sanitary code. It's just the ability of the city to accomplish this went away when the only tool we had in that toolbox to find out when an apartment was being rented was taken from us. It was on the honor system, and going back to out-of-town landlords, corporations, zoning buildings, they don't pick up the phone call.
And the building registry, is this going to be maintained by the city or by the third party?
The third, it's our software, so they're going to be maintaining it, doing the collections, putting the information in the system, but we can look at what they're doing in real time. We can see this. We'll be putting the exempt people in. The city is handling, if somebody claims to be exempt, we'll make the decision, not the vendor, whether you're exempt or not. And then we'll put that into the system. And so they're doing day-to-day, they're doing the inspections, and we're overseeing it. So they're not completely independent.
Yeah. So if we transition vendors 5-7 years from
Correct.
now, we
Correct.
still maintain the data.
Yes. Our contract with them is 5 years. I don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now. We may have another vendor. So we'll have that ability.
Yeah, I was going to say 5 years to start your business.
Thank you, Colin.
So we're trying to make this as easy for landlords and tenants. We phased it in. We're not, like I said, we're not doing any inspection yet. December 1st is when the safe build is supposed to start. We're giving them a list of buildings that we're going to start. We're going to push the registrations at these particular properties. And April 1st, this partnership, I've met with some of the representatives in the Chamber of Commerce. If people wish to have the alternative registration plan put in front of the council, for Lynn, it gives them time to do that. It's something that feel that needs to tweak in the ordinance. It gives them time to do this, but in the meanwhile, we can't sit on our hands, so we will be moving forward with our, I'm not going to say problem properties, because we have an ordinance, a problem property ordinance, which we pass at the same time as the inspection program, and we'll be ramping this up between chronic offenders and problem properties. Now that we have an ability to keep track through the computer system, we will be moving in that direction.
You can have all of this online, the building department, I'm sure. Is there a name for each of these documents? How many are there?
This is not all online yet. It's supposed to be all online real soon. The ordinance is online. We have documents. I would say by January 1st, everything, any rules and regulations promulgated to get this done, and all forms will be online at this location. There's been some confusion because the city also has a short-term rental ordinance. An Airbnb, that you're running an Airbnb. You can find those because if you're running them, you pay your taxes to the state. So we have a registry of where they are. There's only about 30 in the city that we know of. And people have been getting confused between the short-term and the 5-year inspection program. So we're trying to break them in people's minds. We need to do a better job of developing. As part of the promise to not begin the routine inspection for April 1st, I'm going to try to hold, if people are interested, maybe an information session too for landlords. If they want tenants, if they want to attend. So we're working on getting more public outreach out.
I do have a couple of questions. In regards to the exemptions, we tried to call ISD. They have said, we've washed our hands of the situation. We need to talk to Safebuild. Safebuild doesn't answer the phone. We brought up the fact that our home is being sold, and the tenant that is on the first floor is a two-family house. The tenant that's on the first floor is family who does not pay rent, and we were told you pay it on November 15th, or you get fined $300 a day. When we finally hold the Safebuild after weeks of calling. And that's just in addition to the page that I gave you that has our COVID questions. How are you going to have somebody, and I realize that you're concerned with the businesses right now, but as a homeowner in the city, I'm concerned about having someone come in that, how do I know that they're vaccinated? How do I know that they're inquiry checked? How do I know that they're vetted? How do I find out that they've had a 48-hour negative test going into an apartment with an 87-year-old ill woman?
Let's
I mean,
start at the
things like
beginning.
that.
Let's start at the beginning. Before we try to put too much in my head and I can't remember.
Well, that's why I document it, because there's a lot
So,
of questions that should
A
be.
two-family dwelling, owners are exempt. If you own the building and you live in a unit in the building, your unit is exempt. When I say own, your name is on the deed. Other than that, in Massachusetts, you are a tenant, whether you pay or not, you are a tenant. You have tenants' rights. You have a relative living in an apartment, I'm sure some of you have experienced this. They don't want to leave, you have to evict them. You have to take them to court. They are a tenant. They have tenants' rights in Massachusetts. Therefore, they are subject to this because they could pick up the phone tomorrow, call ISD and say, hey, my landlord's not treating me right here. I think I've got roaches. I want you to come down. And we would come down and we would respond. I'm not saying you would, your place, but I'm saying tenants have rights. Therefore, it's a business, it's a rental unit, it's subject to this program. Doesn't matter if they're related to you, doesn't matter if they're your best friend. If their name is not on the deed, they are not an owner and it's subject to be, because you have an 86-year-old person living in there today. Tomorrow there might be a 21-year-old. We don't know. We're in city hall. They could be complaining all day. Obviously, there's going to be individual circumstances. The inspection is once every 5 years. In your case, we could schedule your inspection 2 years from now. And then if you sell the house, you'll never see us because you'll be gone. The new owner can do it. What has to happen, though, I tell all the owners, is the registration. It's $25 per unit. Okay. It seems like a lot of money. It's $15 per year after. It's a $100 inspection. If you divide that by 5, it's $37 a year, plus or minus per unit, which it's not inconsequential. But rents in Lynn have gone from $800 to $1,800 in the past 2 years. So the cost of doing business is the cost of doing business. And part of doing business in the city always has been having a vacancy inspection. We haven't written any $300 tickets. That's the ordinance. That's what our letters say. We're sending out 8,200 letters. We've had lots of conversations with people. We'll continue to have lots of conversations with people. We take every case on a case-by-case basis. We'll go, but in good faith, the landlord does have to register the property. In your case, put the inspection off for 2 years, 3 years. I mean, it's a 5-year schedule. We can schedule you for 2026.
Which is wonderful. It's just the communication we're trying to get to speak to someone at ISD right now because of the letter going out, and I'm sure you're being inundated with phone calls. That's not happening. They just tell you they've washed their hands of it. Safety.
I'd like to know who you talked to because they shouldn't have said they washed their hands of it. They may have referred to
Don't call us. Call Safe Bill. I just want to bust your cookies. This cost me about $75,000 to have my mother in my first floor apartment. She doesn't pay me rent.
Well, that-
And it's not
That's
an apartment
that's
that
your
she's talking
life
about.
choice, Chair. I mean,
I don't have an extra $25.
Okay, we can let Mike continue on because there is quite a bit more to.
So, you know,
Have an appointment at 9:30.
all the inspectors are query check. All of our vendors that have to deal with the public are query check. So,
You doing rapid COVID testing?
no, we're not doing rapid COVID testing. No. I don't think anybody did one before they came in this room, did they?
Get tested every week.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure you're doing it, and I'm not casting any aspersions, but there wasn't somebody standing at the door giving us a test when we walked in here either. So,
We gotta let Mike finish before we take any more questions.
we are sensitive to people's concerns. If the department has to be put off for a couple of years, we can do that. You know, our employees wear masks when they enter into people's properties. We've been doing sanitary inspections since the beginning of COVID. You know, the governor imposed, I think it was on March 15, 2020, an emergency order. We were out doing inspections the next day. Nobody relaxed the sanitary code. Nobody relaxed the building code. You picked up the phone and said, my landlord's not giving me heat. We sent somebody else to the building. That's what we've been doing. And we'll continue to enforce the codes because these are consumer protection and they're safety codes. We don't come in and tell people, oh, you gotta upgrade your plumbing that doesn't look good. No, does it work? Is it rodent free? Is it bug free? And is it meet the minimum standards to live? So we have to do a better job of communication. City always has to do a better job of communication. I've been there 24 years and I can't hop on that more, myself included. We just don't communicate well necessarily all the time with everyone. There is a language barrier in the city, many language barriers. Safe Bill will be working on that by hiring people that speak those languages so we can get into pockets. We're willing to work with all the landlords. This should be viewed as something new as much as a tweak on the old system. Unfortunately, landlords ignore the old system. So here we are today. That, in a nutshell, is the ordinance. Registration now inspections starting, routine inspections starting April 1st. If people want to come see the council and get a tweak done, we're happy to work with people. We're familiar with Boston's ordinance. We know how it can work. We'll have all documentation ready for January 1 with the council. People have 3 months to get in front of the council if they have their ideas, and whether the council takes up the alternative plan, which we didn't put in here, which some of the bigger landlords want to put in here. It's not unreasonable. Boston has it. There's still a cost to it for the landlord. He still has to do what's right in his buildings, and he also still has to have some random routine inspections done by the city to make sure safe bill or a third party to make sure that it's conforming with plan set. So
This sounds like a great.
I'd love it.
It
I
sounds
love
like a great idea.
Mike, you want to touch on what would prompt the 5-year inspection to become an annual inspection?
yes, so we have something called a two statuses in the ordinance, similar to Boston. There's a chronic offender and then a problem property. And a problem property is going to end up with an inspection every year for all the apartments in that property. But to get to be a problem property, it's not an easy thing. It involves at least 4 police calls to the property within for an arrestable offense within the past 12 months. Disturbing the peace, trespassing, underage drinking, assault. Inspectional services has to have 4 complaints for unsanitary conditions. And you have to,
As an addition or?
in
as a-
addition, in addition.
So it's not just for combination of, 2 ISD, 2 police.
No, it's not that easy to get on this list, but I could probably make you a list of 10 buildings in the city that already meet this list. Some of them I can see from here. And once you're on this list, there's heightened scrutiny. Once a year, we're gonna come into the building and do every single apartment. I mean, if you own one of these buildings, you have a problem with the city already. Chronic offender is somebody who either refused to register or had a sanitary complaint. Now, sanitary complaints happen every day. Landlord may not be aware of a situation, a pipe broke, somebody called, it's a sanitary complaint. Come down, we look, we verify, we give the landlord notice, say you have 48 hours to fix this. The landlord fixes it in 48 hours, we all go away, and everyone's happy. If the landlord doesn't fix it within the time period specified, you become a chronic offender. And then we have to step up the inspections. I believe we'll be doing them once every 3 years at that point. So you keep your property to the minimum standards, and we visit you once every 5 years. You become a property like one in downtown Lynn, where the police are there every single day. We're there 2 or 3 times a week, and we'll come visit you. I mean, this is about giving people a place to live, which means the minimum sanitary qualifications, the minimum.
Is there a public list of them? Can I look online and see it?
You will soon, not yet.
If you go on the state, 35 pages of the state.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the chronic property.
Oh, I thought you were talking about this.
No.
Sorry.
When I find out that, somebody's got a crappy apartment, they ought to sell it, put it in somebody's hands who's gonna maintain the property.
Oh.
You like to make these money-making
I
opportunities.
hear you. We like, I'm sorry.
You would recognize most of these buildings real quickly.
Can I ask you, you have a unit that was already inspected and approved by the city, and you have the same tenant? 2 years ago.
Mhm.
You have to be re-inspected again?
No, we're gonna honor that inspection.
Okay.
If we inspected a unit, because you called us and said, oh, I'm renting this unit, that's a good question, because that's come up, right? And we will honor that as part of your inspection. If you have a Section 8 tenant and you have a copy, you have an inspection done by the housing authority, whichever housing authority is in your building, wherever the voucher is from, you just need to give us a copy of that inspection, and we'll use that inspection for that apartment. So depending on how you do your business, a lot of the apartments in Lynn may already have had an inspection. There's a yearly inspection section voucher, so you need one of those when it's your turn.
And when you inspect a unit, you inspect the whole building? In
Uh,
other words, if you have a couple of units and come to inspect one unit, you go and inspect the basement.
We ins-
Is it a general inspection or just a bit?
It's a general inspection under the sanitary code for the common areas and the apartments.
I gotta tell my wife to get her clothes out of the basement.
Well, yeah,
Because
I
it's
mean-
the whole basement.
looking at the inspection form, now this is a sanitary code, so by law, we're supposed to visit every apartment building in the city under the building code once every 5 years to do common area inspection. We tried doing this a couple of times in the city, we've never been successful. Most communities aren't, because getting into a building does not have a property manager is impossible. I mean, you need to show up when whoever's there is home. So the inspection form will be posted online, hopefully by the end of this week, but when we come, it's the exterior, the yard, porch, common areas inside, stairwells, are there lights? Are there screens on the windows? Are there handrails there? I mean, very, very basic things. If you're missing some of these things, are there locks in the exterior doors? I mean, if you're missing these things, it's not a good place to be. So, ventilation, ceiling height, window screen, ceiling height, 5 ceiling. We had somebody just build an apartment in the city, a door that was 5 feet high. It didn't pass the inspection. When you walked into the room, the ceiling was less than 6 feet high. They did it themselves. They think they're gonna rent this unit. It's like, well,
It's perfect for me.
so we had to inform them that they couldn't do this, and they had to get an architect involved. You gotta do something about this, because this is not a legal unit. It doesn't meet the building or the sanitary code. So
Seems to like it.
There's also requirements that, because it's unbelievable how many houses don't have visible numbers on them, and that some type of placard is there to identify who the management company is with a phone number.
yes, sir. That's in this ordinance. It's an existing ordinance today. We enforce it not as much as we could. The police are supposed to enforce it. We're supposed to enforce it. It's supposed to be a placard in every building that has rental units. I think it may be.
I mean, because as a council, if I get a call at 2 AM, I want to be able to call somebody at 2 AM.
Yes, and if the police want to call somebody at 2 AM, they're supposed to be able to call somebody at 2 AM. And that has been a problem. I don't think 2 families are part of the placard system. I think it's more than 3.
Yeah.
It could be. And the bigger buildings in town have it. It's where we run into not most, but a lot of our problems. 6 family and below. No owner on site, no profit. That's where the buildings.
Once they all register, you should have a contact.
So
This might be a silly question, but does ever the overview of a multi-family home? Because I can tell you, many homes I drive by from Dexter, and I can only imagine. So I'm sure it's never prompted inspection. You guys are just driving around. I made the prompt inspection.
it does, if we notice that there's a structural deficiency, it's gonna prompt this by a building inspector. But we rely on complaints. And there are 23,000 potential problems in the city for rental units. So we just don't randomly pick buildings. We're kept busy with complaints. People call every day, complaints about them, some warranted, some unwarranted. When a building gets that bad.
If they just add, for those that are joining us on Zoom, if you have questions, please enter them in a chat. And then we'll have Colin read them up. Any questions?
I just wanted to say that the placard system is for 6 and below, or 4 above, or what?
Wasn't sure, he thought
No.
it was 3, I thought it was 6.
I think that's this ordinance says if the owner doesn't live there, you have to have a plat,
No matter how many
no matter
units.
how many. So if there's a rental, the rental unit and the owner doesn't live there, there has to be some identification placard on the outside that fire department, police department can get in touch with the owner. It's just like the incident yesterday, you all probably saw it in Weston Avenue, trying to push a car into a house. Well, we had to find the landlord. They had to find the tenant. Luckily, a tenant had the landlord's number, but it's foreign them on. The property, you say, you gotta get some people out here right now because the front porch is not here anymore.
Done that, Ben, yeah.
How does the city plan on handling the illegal houses? People who are renting basements, garages, and everybody knows that they're out there. How are they, you're gonna inspect the people that may be doing things right or doing things wrong, but how are you inspecting the people that are under the radar?
Well, the same way we handle it now, the same way we'll handle it then, the same way we handle it now. If there's an illegal apartment, we give a cease and desist, we tell them they can't use it, they need to vacate it, and give them, 24 hours, 48 hours to vacate it, and that's it. I mean, there are a lot of legal apartments. When we find them, we prosecute. We find the owner. If he's not cooperative, she's not cooperative. But mainly when we find them, people vacate them because they know they're illegal.
Mike, you mentioned some things are exempt. What's some examples of who's exempt from this regulation ordinance?
The only people that are exempt are government-owned buildings. So the federal government, the state government, and the housing authority owns buildings in the city, Truman Circle, Wall Towers. Those units are exempt.
Why is that? They have their own inspectors.
Because they're owned by the government, and it's assumed that if the government owns it, the government's following the government's rules.
We all know what assumption is, right?
Yeah.
So Mike, like, say a building like Neptune Towers with 140, is that still held to the same requirements? Same. Is there a cap on the dollars? Or is it still?
There's a cap on the amount of money on the registration, yes. It's per unit, but it caps off, I think it's $2,500 for a building. But I'm going to clear a misconception. Somebody having a voucher or somebody having a subsidy, that's not an exempt property. It only exempt properties are those owned by the government, local state. Okay. We have buildings in the subsidized buildings. They're not exempt. They are rental units. They're subject to the ordinance. They're subject to the state sanitary code, and they don't have their own inspections. Now, if the voucher that they have or the reasons that they're affordable requires them to get, an inspection from an outside third party every year, we will accept that inspection as being, their inspection for every 5 years, but they still have to register. And if you live in your apartment, you're exempt. You still have to register, but we're not going to charge you. We're going to register you as an exempt. So in this particular case, this two-family house, one unit's owned by the owner, live in it, registered, no fee, no inspection.
And any of the new places, say the Caldwell or Breakwater, they're brand new, they've been occupancy inspected, they're good for 5
They
years.
go for 5 years because they have a certificate of inspection given them by the building inspectors when it was built. If you renovate your building and you renovate your apartments in the building, you get a certificate of inspection, you will honor that for 5 years. If you've done an inspection in the past 5 years of your apartment for a vacancy inspection, not for a complaint, but we came in for a vacancy and you have a copy of it, or show us that you paid us the fee, we'll honor that. So there's a lot of apartments that are already had an inspection done, one form or another, and we can move on, and they don't have to, other than register, they don't have to do anything for another 5 years, sometime after 2026.
But every time there's a turnover in tenant, you get a certificate of occupancy, you got to do it again.
No, that's
Oh,
gone away. So we're just gonna come visit every apartment once every 5 years, period. You can change tenant every year in that apartment, but you're only required to have one inspection done in a 5-year period.
Is this a
The
new
old ordinance went away.
I know you
Can I interrupt the meeting, just so I can excuse myself from the meeting? I want to thank everybody. And have a good, let's say, Wednesday, have a good one. Have a good hump day.
Thank you for joining us. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Excuse me.
So that represents a change in practice.
Yes,
Awesome, thank you.
the program wasn't working. That's what prompted us to go to this, because we were down, like I said, 3,500 inspections to 550, 600 in that range. So
Okay, are there any questions online?
I hadn't seen any pop up. If someone online does have a question, you can either just raise your hand and then unmute yourself and ask. I had one that I just
Okay.
wanted to clarify. Could you just, again, real quick, cover the registration process? Where is it online? Is it online? What's that look like, and how can we as the chamber be supportive of getting these units registered?
it's not online right now. It'll be online soon. Right now, people will have received a letter and a form. Form is online. You can get the form, but you have to mail the check in or mail the form in and call Safe Build, charge your charge card, however you want to pay. Visit them. They're in City Hall Square. They have an office. We're working on our portal to allow people. We have the basics, everything's there, but we haven't been able to, our vendor hasn't been able to get it out. But that's our next step. They promise us November 1st.
I get a couple of questions from insurance world. Seeing a lot of multi-families where owned by an elderly person, elderly couple, whatnot, and so they're moving things, kids are moving things over into a trust.
Mhm.
So is that now, if you're in a 3-family and the parents are still living there, it's now in the trust? Is that now 3 rental units that, as far as the city's concerned?
As far as not the city, Commonwealth.
Commonwealth, okay, so.
That if you put the property in a trust and the trustee, the trust doesn't live there, then that person is a tenant.
Okay.
That person has
So
tenant,
the
has
parent
tenant's
would be
rights.
the
But the
tenant.
parent
By
becomes
law,
by
okay.
law. And we're getting a lot of calls on that because people, the condos, the houses, they're putting.
Yeah.
And Mike, if you're late in purchasing, will you be fined $200 a day? I mean, that's what.
The ordinance allows us to do that, but let's look at it this way. We're milling out $22,000. Say half, 10, 12,000 people aren't registering right away. Am I gonna write $12,300 ticket?
Damn right.
We're gonna work with, as long as it goes through your department, right? You're all on board.
Well, that was my question too, because, again, you're dealing with a lot of elderly people who never been contacted by the city forever, and all of a sudden now they're getting a letter and they don't know.
They're the ones who are calling us.
Okay,
They're the ones who are calling us, and we're working with them to, hopefully they're getting better customer service this way. But they're not the ones I anticipate having problems. Buildings that I mentioned earlier that are rising from property, we haven't heard of. We're gonna be knocking on their door. So we send you a letter, you don't register, we'll send you another letter, or we're gonna call you. We're gonna try to get in touch with you, because letters get lost in the mail. I mean, nothing's perfect. People are involved, so we're not gonna give you a $300 ticket till we've made some attempts to get to you, and you're just not responding to us. And we know you're not responding. We'll put an orange placard in your building saying, you need to contact us. And if you don't contact us after that, then that's when the ticket will start, because now we're coming out to your property to visit you and you're still ignoring it. No one's received a ticket. It's one of those things in government. If we don't put it on the letter we're sending you, we just can't give you a ticket now. We have to tell you that if you don't do this, we have to do this. So it's there. It doesn't mean that I want to write. And if in a perfect world, I'm not going to write any 300. But it's not a perfect world.
Are there any other questions? No questions from our online viewers? Okay, with that, Mike, thank you very much for
Thanks
coming
for
in
having
and
me.
clearing up a lot of misconceptions. Joe, Colin, do you have anything to add? Upcoming events?
I will say one, hi guys. We do have our annual tree lighting coming up. We're lighting up Central Square. We're having a 20-foot Christmas tree. We're getting all the lamp poles all down there. Are gonna have wreaths and lights. That's on Monday, November 29th from 3 to 6. There's gonna be some kids out there singing Christmas carols and a menorah and everything. And then the next day on November 30th is going to be the City Hall tree lighting event. So a couple of fun holiday activities. And then,
Well, if we're talking about activities, I'd like to give a shameless plug to the Lynn-Tech Alumni Association's Festival of Trees down to the Lynn-Tech Annex, beginning on Sunday, running through the week, every night during the week. It's not too late to put in a tree, to donate. Bring your family down. It's become, with the exception of last year's cancellation due to COVID, it's become quite a family tradition to come on down. We've got special guests. Buddy the Elf, aka Dan Cahill, comes down, Santa, and a whole bunch of fun events. So come on down, support the Lynn-Tech Alumni Association. With that, I'd like to thank Brotherhood Credit Union for allowing us to use this space this morning. So we've lost the space on Chestnut Street. Hopefully we'll have a permanent space soon. Again, thanks Mike Donovan. Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. Have a great day. Thank you.
I would like to add one thing to this, is we always like to make these money-making meetings. People get forms in the mail all the time on multifamilies asking about the financial on the building. So if you're collecting X number of dollars of rent, you've got expenses. People ignore them all the time. Take a look at your tax bill. You're going to see a little line item above the line where the assessed value is. It's going to say either $200 or as much as $400. You're going to pay that in tax for failing to respond to that. Everybody understand that?
The personal property.
Well, no, you have to fill out a form. You don't have to do it. If you don't do it, you're going to get a $200 whack on your tax bill. If people don't know that, I don't know how, but.
I don't know if you run a business. I do, and you have personal property assessment.
Form of list.
Yeah,
And if you don't fill it out, you ignore it, you're going to get a $200 bill on your tax, and they don't bring it up, so you'll never know. Just pay the tax. So anyway.
They just added to your tax bill, if you don't do it.
Pardon me?
They just added to your
Yeah,
tax bill.
yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Nobody knows it. That's why I
Good
gotta
job.
bring it up.
Yeah.
Thank you.